Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God, back with you with the next video in my series reading Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Without further ado, returning to Oliver Twist as read by Lord Naren White.
I haven't got him, my dear,
said the old man.
Where is he?
Screamed Nancy in a distracted manner.
Why, the gentleman's got him,
replied the officer.
What gentleman? Oh, gracious heavens! What gentleman?
Exclaimed Nancy. In reply to this incoherent questioning, the old man informed the deeply affected sister that Oliver had been taken ill in the office and discharged in consequence of a witness having proved the robbery to have been committed by another boy, not in custody, and the prosecutor had carried him away in an insensible condition to his own residence, and concerning which all the informant knew was that it was somewhere in Pentonville, he having heard that word mentioned in the directions to the coachman. In a dreadful state of doubt and uncertainty, the agonized young woman staggered to the gate and then, exchanging her faltering walk for a swift run, returned by the most devious and complicated route she could think of to the domicile of the Jew. Mr. Bill Sikes no sooner heard the account of the expedition delivered than he very hastily called up the white dog and, putting it on his hat, expeditiously departed, without devoting any time to the formality of wishing the company good morning.
We must know where he is, my dears. He must be found, said the Jew, greatly excited. Charlie, do nothing but skulk about till you bring home some news of him. Nancy, my dear, I must have him found. I trust you, my dear, to you and the artful for everything. Stay, added the Jew, unlocking a drawer with a shaking hand. There's money, my dears. I shall shut up this shop tonight. You'll know where to find me. Don't stop here a minute, not an instant, my dears.
With these words, he pushed them from the room, and carefully double locking and barring the door behind them, drew from its place of concealment the box, which he had unintentionally disclosed to Oliver. Then he hastily proceeded to dispose the watches and jewelry beneath his clothing. A rap at the door startled him in this occupation.
Who's there?
He cried in a shrill tone.
Me,
replied the voice of the Dodger through the keyhole.
What now?
Cried the Jew impatiently.
Is he to be kidnapped to the other Ken, Nancy says?
Inquired the Dodger.
Yes,
replied the Jew.
Wherever she lays hands on him, find him out, that's all. I shall know what to do next, never fear.
The boy murmured a reply of intelligence and hurried downstairs after his companions.
He has not preached so far, said the Jew,
as he pursued his occupation.
If he means to blab us to among his new friends, we may stop his mouth yet.
Chapter 14. Comprising further particulars of Oliver's stay at Mr. Brownlow's with the remarkable prediction which one Mr. Grimwig uttered concerning him when he went out on an errand. Oliver, soon recovering from the fainting fit into which Mr. Brownlow's abrupt exclamation had thrown him, the subject of the picture was carefully avoided both by the old gentleman and Mrs. Bedwin, in the conversation that ensued, which indeed bore no reference to Oliver's history or prospects, but was confined to such topics as might amuse without exciting him. He was still too weak to get up to breakfast, but when he came down into the housekeeper's room the next day, his first act was to cast an eager glance at the wall, in the hope of again looking on the face of the beautiful lady. His expectations were disappointed, however, for the picture had been removed.
Ah,
said the housekeeper, watching the direction of Oliver's eyes.
It is gone, you see. I see it is, ma'am.
replied Oliver.
Why have they taken it away? It has been taken down, child, because Mr. Brownlow said that as it seemed to worry you, perhaps it might prevent your getting well, you know,
rejoined the old lady.
Oh, no, indeed, it didn't worry me, ma'am,
said Oliver.
I liked to see it. I quite loved it.
Well, well, said the old lady, good-humouredly.
You get well as fast as ever you can, dear, and it shall be hung up again. There, I promise you that. Now let us talk about something else.
This was all the information Oliver could obtain about the picture at that time. As the old lady had been so kind to him in his illness, he endeavored to think no more of the subject just then, so he listened attentively to a great many stories she told him about an amiable and handsome daughter of hers, who was married to an amiable and handsome man, and lived in the country, and about a son, who was clerk to a merchant in the West Indies, and who was also such a good young man, and wrote such dutiful letters home 4 times a year, that it brought the tears into her eyes to talk about them. When the old lady had expatiated a long time on the excellences of her children, and the merits of her kind, good husband besides, who had been dead and gone, poor dear soul, just 26 years, it was time to have tea. After tea, she began to teach Oliver cribbage, which he learned as quickly as she could teach, and at which game they played with great interest and gravity, until it was time for the invalid to have some warm wine and water, with a slice of dry toast, and then go cosily to bed. There were happy days, those of Oliver's recovery. Everything was so quiet and neat and orderly, everybody so kind and gentle, that after the noise and turbulence in the midst of which he had always lived, it seemed like heaven itself. He was no sooner strong enough to put his clothes on properly than Mr. Brownlow caused a complete new suit, and a new cap, and a new pair of shoes to be provided for him. As Oliver was told that he might do what he liked with the old clothes, he gave them to a servant who had been very kind to him, and asked her to sell them to a Jew, and keep the money for herself. This she very readily did, and, as Oliver looked out of the parlor window, and saw the Jew roll them up in his bag and walk away, he felt quite delighted to think that they were safely gone, and that there was no possible danger of his ever being able to wear them again. They were sad rags, to tell the truth, and Oliver had never had a suit before. One evening, about a week after the affair of the picture, as he was sitting talking to Mrs. Bedwin, there came a message down from Mr. Brownlow that if Oliver Twist felt pretty well, he should like to see him in his study and talk to him a little while.
Bless us and save us. Wash your hands, and let me part your hair nicely for you, child, said Mrs. Bedwin. Dear heart alive! If we had known he would have asked for you, we would have put you in a clean collar and made you as smart as 6 pence.
Oliver did as the old lady bade him, and, although she lamented grievously, meanwhile, that there was not even time to crimp the little frill that bordered his shirt collar, he looked so delicate and handsome, despite that important personal advantage, that she went so far as to say, looking at him with great complacency from head to foot, that she really didn't think it would have been possible, on the longest notice, to have made much difference in him for the better. Thus encouraged, Oliver tapped at the study door. On Mr. Brownlow calling to him to come in, he found himself in a little back room, quite full of books, with a window looking into some pleasant little gardens. All right, we'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.